Who is Ted Bundy? Ted Bundy was an American serial killer who was active in the 1970s. He confessed to the murder of at least 30 young women and girls, although the actual number of his victims is believed to be much higher. Bundy was known for his good looks and charm, which he used to gain the trust of his victims before abducting and killing them. He was executed by electric chair in Florida in 1989. Bundy's crimes and his high-profile trial and execution have been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and films. Ted Bundy childhood miseries? Ted Bundy's childhood was marked by several difficulties and challenges that may have contributed to his later criminal behavior. Here are some of the issues that Bundy faced in his early life. Bundy was born to an unmarried mother who was sent away to a home for unwed mothers during her pregnancy. His father's identity was never confirmed. Bundy was raised by his grandparents in a strict and controlling household. His grandfather was known for his violent temper and would often physically punish Bundy. Bundy struggled with a speech impediment as a child, which made him a target for bullying by his peers. As a teenager, Bundy discovered that the woman he believed was his older sister was actually his mother. This revelation had a profound impact on Bundy and may have contributed to his feelings of confusion and anger. Bundy had difficulty forming close relationships with others and was often socially isolated. While these factors may have contributed to Bundy's later behavior, it's important to note that not everyone who experiences difficulties in childhood goes on to become a serial killer. Bundy's case is complex and multifaceted, and many different factors likely played a role in his criminal behavior, including his psychological makeup and his own choices and actions. Ted Bundy's span of crimes? Ted Bundy's crimes span several years and several states in the United States. He is known to have committed murders in Washington, Oregon, Utah, Colorado, and Florida between 1974 and 1978. He is suspected of committing additional murders in other states as well, but the exact number of his victims is unknown. Bundy's crimes typically followed a similar pattern. He would approach young women and gain their trust by pretending to be injured or disabled, then abduct and kill them. He often kept souvenirs from his victims and engaged in necrophilia with their bodies. How many crimes did Ted Bundy had committed? Ted Bundy confessed to committing 30 murders, but the actual number of his victims is believed to be higher. He was only convicted of a few of these murders, but evidence and witness testimony linked him to several others. It's difficult to determine the exact number of Bundy's crimes because he was known to be very manipulative and often lied or gave incomplete information about his activities. However, it's estimated that he may have been responsible for as many as 100 murders. How Ted Bundy became a serial killer? It is difficult to pinpoint a single factor or event that led Ted Bundy to become a serial killer, as his behavior was likely the result of a complex interplay of psychological, environmental, and social factors. However, here are some of the factors that may have contributed to Bundy's criminal behavior. Bundy was known to have a difficult childhood, marked by family instability and a lack of emotional support. Some experts believe that this early trauma may have contributed to Bundy's later behavior. Bundy was a pathological liar who often created false personas to manipulate and deceive others. This behavior may have been a precursor to his later crimes, as it allowed him to gain the trust of his victims. Bundy was known to have an intense and obsessive interest in pornography, particularly violent and sadistic material. Some experts believe that this interest may have fueled his fantasies and contributed to his violent behavior. Bundy had a deeply ingrained sense of entitlement and a desire for power and control. This may have contributed to his desire to dominate and victimize others. Bundy's behavior was also shaped by the cultural context of the time, particularly the rise of the sexual revolution and the feminist movement. Some experts believe that Bundy's crimes were a response to the changes taking place in society, and a way for him to assert his dominance over women. Overall, Bundy's behavior was likely the result of a complex interplay of factors, including his psychological makeup, early life experiences, and social and cultural context. While there is no single explanation for his criminal behavior, studying his case can help us better understand the complex nature of serial killers and the factors that contribute to their behavior. Ted Bundy crimes? Ted Bundy was a serial killer who committed a number of heinous crimes during the 1970s. Here are some of the known crimes he committed. In 1974, Bundy attacked and killed several young women in the Seattle, Washington area, including 2 college students from the University of Washington. In 1975, Bundy moved to Utah and continued his killing spree, targeting women in the Salt Lake City area. He also attacked several women in Colorado that year. In 1978, Bundy moved to Florida and continued his killing spree. In January of that year, he attacked several women in the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University, killing 2 of them and seriously injuring 2 others. Later that same month, he kidnapped and killed a 12-year-old girl. In February 1978, Bundy was arrested in Pensacola, Florida after being pulled over and found to have suspicious items in his car. He was later linked to the Florida State University attacks and other murders. Bundy was eventually convicted of several of his crimes and was executed by electric chair in Florida in 1989. However, it's believed that he may have committed many more murders that he was never caught or prosecuted for. Ted Bundy modus operandi? Ted Bundy's modus operandi, or method of operation, varied somewhat throughout his killing spree. However, there were certain commonalities in the way he approached and attacked his victims. Here are some of the typical characteristics of Bundy's modus operandi. Bundy was known for being charming and personable, often using his good looks and intelligence to gain the trust of his victims. He would typically approach his victims in public places, such as college campuses or parks, and would often pretend to be injured or disabled to get their attention and sympathy. Once he had gained his victims' trust, Bundy would overpower them and often take them to a secluded location, such as a remote forest or abandoned building. He would then assault, torture, and kill his victims, often using weapons such as a crowbar or a blunt object. Bundy was known for his savagery and cruelty, and would often engage in necrophilia with his victims' bodies. After killing his victims, Bundy would often dispose of their bodies in remote locations, making it difficult for law enforcement to find them. Overall, Bundy's modus operandi was characterized by deception, charm, and extreme violence. He was a very dangerous and unpredictable individual who was able to evade capture for a long time due to his intelligence and ability to blend in with society. How Ted Bundy got caught. Ted Bundy was caught by law enforcement in 1978, after a long and intense manhunt. Here's how he was finally apprehended. Bundy was stopped by a police officer in Pensacola, Florida in February 1978, after the officer noticed that he was driving erratically. Bundy had stolen a car and was driving without headlights, and the officer became suspicious. When the officer approached Bundy's car, he noticed that there were suspicious items in the vehicle, including a ski mask, gloves, and handcuffs. Bundy also appeared nervous and agitated, which raised further suspicions. Bundy was arrested and taken into custody, where he was eventually linked to a number of murders in Florida and other states. He was identified by witnesses and survivors of his attacks, and physical evidence, such as hair and fibers, also linked him to the crimes. Bundy was eventually put on trial for several of his murders, including the Chi Omega sorority house murders and the murder of the 12-year-old girl in Florida. He was convicted and sentenced to death. Bundy's conviction was later upheld on appeal, and he was executed by electric chair in January 1989. Overall, Bundy was caught due to a combination of luck, good police work, and forensic evidence. His erratic behavior while driving the stolen car ultimately led to his arrest and the unraveling of his long reign of terror. How the Ted Bundy case ended. The Ted Bundy case ended with his execution by electric chair on January 24, 1989, in Florida. Bundy had been convicted of several murders and was sentenced to death for his crimes. His appeals were unsuccessful, and he spent many years on death row before his execution. Bundy's case was significant because of the brutality and violence of his crimes, as well as the fact that he was a serial killer who operated in several states. Bundy's good looks and charming personality also added to the notoriety of his case, as many people found it difficult to reconcile his outward appearance with the horrific nature of his crimes. Despite Bundy's execution, his case continues to fascinate and horrify people to this day. It has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and films, and his crimes are studied by law enforcement agencies and criminologists as an example of the dangers of serial killers and the importance of effective investigative techniques.